Hey, what's up YouTube? In this video, we are deleting my city. Just kidding. But it is time that we upgraded it. Before we get into that though, here is every single build that we added into the city in the past month. We have a doctor's office, a candy store, Zaxby's, a convenience store, a skyscraper office building, a tennis arena, a car mechanic garage, I still don't know what to call it, and most impressively, this giant AI high school, which some have called a college campus. All of these builds were of course added into the city, and where in the city did all of these builds go, I hear you ask? Where did they go in the city? Let me show you. The doctor's office regrettably got added into the modern suburbs. The candy store into the new suburban suburbs. So did Zaxby's. The convenience store. The mechanic's garage car repair facility. And the tennis arena. The modern skyscraper office building got added downtown. And the AI high school, of course, got put into storage because it is an AI building and eventually we have plans for those. And now we come back to the start of the video. I want to delete my city, or at least parts of it, and rebuild it. Bigger, better, stronger, cuter. But TSMC, you may ask, why? You've been lovingly crafting this city for probably years now. And therein lies the problem. Whilst I really like some parts of my city, such as the new suburban suburbs, and there are other loads of little bits that I love as well, such as the original suburbs with McDonald's, the school, the church. But here's some things that I don't like. This giant modern mansion is kind of just like an eyesore. Connected to that is a train station that doesn't go anywhere. As a matter of fact, the modern suburbs in general are kind of a mess. It doesn't feel as though that there's much cohesion here at all. The same kind of goes for downtown. Whilst I do like this high street here, as you start to expand out, it just gets really messy. So what I'm doing is this. Starting with the outer edges of the city, I am going to rebuild areas that I'm not happy with. I think that the best place to start this city rebuilding experiment is with an area that is barely connected to the city. Enter the frame, our farm. The initial plan for the renovation was to combine our farm, wind farm, and solar farm into one cohesive build, or at the very least a set of builds that flowed nicely into each other, rather than just being stuck in this little weird trio that we have right now. It's kind of like some sort of weird farm cul-de-sac. I began by moving the wind farm behind our actual farm and increasing the amount of windmills. I then thought to myself, why do you always see pylons near farmers' fields and just fields in general? And why doesn't my farm have any pylons? Well, there's an easy way to solve that problem. But first, I needed more fields. I started off by just copy and pasting the actual initial field that you can see on the farm, just to get a bit of an idea of a land layout really. I then realised that just adding 2 additional fields was not as satisfactory, so I added more. And then I realised that we needed paths between the fields. And the terrain around the farm wouldn't just be grass, that'd be insanity. We need trees and plant life and wildlife. And that is when I decided to ditch the solar farm. I decided that we could incorporate the solar farm into a different part of the city. But in its place, you guys know I love Easter eggs. Chocolate and otherwise. I moved the Plantar family farm in between our wind farm and our regular farm, and I tactfully hid it in amongst trees and hills. I also got it into my mind that I want the motorway to connect directly to this point in the build where the grey road and the stone road intersect. I want a roundabout which then leads on to a motorway or highway. I did later scrap that idea, however, but a huge part of the city renovation project will be making sure that our highways and roads do actually connect together and go somewhere. A lot of this part of the video is figuring out where all of the fields are going to go, how big they are, and making sure that there's enough space in between them so that we can add roads, hedges, and fence. You may notice that I'm also still hung up on the idea of having a roundabout which connects directly to a motorway right next to the farm, which I really don't like the idea of now that I'm watching it myself. But in the moment you have all kinds of crazy ideas. Enter into the frame another seldom used build. The power pole, the telephone pole, the electric pole. I can't remember what these things are called, but I can guarantee it's one of those. I want to incorporate more pylons and utilitarian builds like the telephone pole into the city. It would make sense that we see more of these. Figuring out the farmland situation was incredibly helpful. It really helped to narrow my focus. From there, I added a green terracotta hedge in front of the farm, which then in turn allowed me to place that cyan terracotta road that you might be able to see. This is going to be a main road that leads to, well, everywhere else, whereas the grey concrete road leads into the farm and the power station, and the stone road leads directly into the farm. On the opposite side of the grey concrete, there will just be a bunch of hills and greenery and trees. This did lead to another issue, however, the actual farmland itself. Initially, I was just going to copy the farmland that we have on the farm, the wheat and the kind of like half-harvested field. But that didn't really make too much sense. So, closer to the farm, I added some harvested fields. And as we expand out, I figured that we could just have big wheat fields. But in the future, I kind of want to do a field tutorial, so that I can upgrade these fields even further, and make them even nicer. I also kind of thought to myself that the pylon probably wouldn't just be there randomly in the middle of the field, so I added kind of a fence around it and a small path. Later on, I will isolate it even further, and we'll have a couple of interesting parts of farmland around here. I also added either hedging in the form of leaves or terracotta, and some fence around all of our little plots of farmland. Initially, I wanted to make everything all uniform and nice and the same, but when have you ever seen farmland that is like identical? Like all of the fields are weird shapes and they have like nature and all sorts of weird stuff in them, so I wasn't stressing too hard about making them all identical. Also, I don't know if there is an easier way to do this, but I manually planted an entire wheat field. I'm gonna have to look into this, but I'm pretty sure I have done in the past, and I don't think that there is an easier way around it. But I manually planted a wheat field, which took an insane amount of time, and then I just waited for it to grow, and then I just copied and pasted it into the other fields that I wanted wheat in. Which was actually so annoying, by the way. We'll take a closer look at everything that I've made after the time-lapse, but next to the pylon, I decided that I wanted to add something a bit different. To the left of the pylon, I added some beehives, and to the right of the pylon, we have a pretty big field, so I thought that I would add just a bunch of pigs here. So, pigs always have those weird-looking metal-y dome houses, so I added a bunch of those into the field. I also added a couple of watering holes. I kind of tore the field up a little bit, added some coarse dirt, added a bit of brown concrete, a tree, and I added some troughs in the middle, and I thought that that just looked perfect, and it was really, really simple to make. The only thing left to do was to kind of just clean up all of the mess that was left. So I added some more windmills in the back to help further balance things out. I cleaned up the fields that they were in. Anywhere that I left kind of like weird holes in the environment, I fixed those, added fences, added gates where necessary, removed all of these structure blocks such as the gold that you can see. And I also just extended our hill and forest area more so towards the actual main road. So this is it. This is the renovation complete for now. We are still missing a bunch of details, but we will add those once this is in its final place. Spoiler alert, we still have more to do. So I don't want to start adding mobs and item frames and all sorts of other things that would get removed when I eventually have to copy and paste this somewhere else. But for now, this is the main road entering the farms area. And this is the road that leads us all the way up into the power station if we chose to go that way. But first, we have our actual farm. This already feels just so much better. It feels far more immersive with some different kinds of hedging and the telephone poles. It actually feels like an actual sort of farm. So I'm just going to move this along a little bit. All the way at the end of this road, we have our giant pig pen. This thing's actually huge now that I'm kind of like up and close and personal with it. But it will be a lot better when we actually get some pigs in here and we can actually add food and some of the other things that the pigs would probably really appreciate. This is the pylon. Preferably, it would be connected to other pylons, kind of in the same way that those are there. But once again, that kind of requires some more building around this so that we are able to do that. And even so, even if we never connect it to anything, I think that it looks really good like this. This is the little bee section of the farm. We just have a bunch of beehives on stands. I did also consider adding some hives into the trees as well, but I don't necessarily want just a bunch of bees flying around at the moment. The farm itself is pretty much untouched. We've just expanded it this way and added just a bunch of bay bales is what I was about to say. Let's try that again. Hay bales. And you can see that this leads us into just a bunch of windmills, and I've kind of like dug a trench here, so we're able to actually access these. I don't know whether it'd be better to fence them off or not, but I'm going to leave this like this for now. But it feels like a very natural way to kind of like connect all of these together. I'm also not sure whether I should remove this wall as well between the two fences. We've got some saplings here which I'm just going to allow to grow whenever they decide to. The wind farm itself is, I believe, completely unchanged. We just moved its location. The last little bit of this, of course, is in between these hills and these trees. Hidden amongst all of this plant life is, of course, the plantar farm from Amphibia, which just seems like a perfect fit here. I really like this. I think that it fits in really, really nicely. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to have like a mythical frog amphibian ran farm here in amongst all of these other like real world realistic builds, but you guys know that I love to add stuff like this, and I think that this is the perfect build to have chosen. If that makes grammatical sense. I'm not sure it does, and I'm not gonna think about it too much. That's it, guys. That is renovation number 1. That is how we are going to slowly but surely improve our city over time. Every single month we are going to do something like this, maybe even more frequently, although it does take a really, really long time.
Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Also, consider becoming a channel member. You will gain access to loyalty badges, some fun emojis, and a monthly download for every single build used in our city. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Hey, what's up YouTube? In this video, we are deleting my city. Again. Just kidding. Kind of. We're not deleting it as much as we are rebuilding, replacing and reinvigorating it. But more on that later. The question that I can hear everybody asking is, what did you build last month? And the answer to that is not much. We made a tutorial of the AI school that actually took almost an entire week to put together. We made a TGI Fridays, which was honestly a refreshing build to make. Then we made Wayne Enterprises, a giant stone skyscraper that takes multiple hours to make. Then we made a nice, refreshing pale oak suburban house, including a pretty nice interior. We also made a clothes store, and then a rather complicated Lego set. This is the Corner Cafe modular building, which wasn't particularly easy to make, if I had to tell you guys the truth. And finally, we made Steve's lava chicken stand. This was easy to make and a lot of fun. It might have been my favorite build of the entire month. But you guys know that we don't make these builds for no reason. We then added all of them into the city. And I hear you guys again. Where did those builds go in that city of yours? Let me show you. The school and the Lego Cafe are in storage, as they are both rather huge and they just can't simply be plopped into the city. Wayne Enterprises has been plopped into the business district, which is gaining more and more builds by the month. It's a part of the city that I'm very eager to renovate. Our suburban house got added onto the end of one of our pre-existing cul-de-sacs. And lastly, TGI Fridays, the clothes store, and Steve's lava chicken stand got added into the new suburban suburbs. Whilst we have a lower quantity of builds this month, trust me when I tell you that at the very least 3 of those builds took an extortionate amount of time to make. In design, tutorial, and editing. I think that we're gonna chill out a little bit next month, maybe some smaller builds. Right, let's go back to the beginning. I am deleting my city. Last month, we deleted, replaced, and revamped this outer area of the city. We turned this into this. Not too shabby. This month, I would at the very least like to take this set of builds that I have right here, and maybe some more that I think of as we progress along, and I would like to do something similar with this area of the city. It has a bit of an identity crisis, and I'd love to help it out. First of all, we have some cleaning to do. We can completely remove the amphibia house, we used that in the previous video. However, the modern suburban houses and the Halloween house are getting moved off to the side so that we have a nice blank canvas to work with. This is the area that we are renovating today. I wanted to start off by making a hedge on the opposite side of our farm road, just to further separate the work areas. One of the builds that we are using today is my solar farm. It just makes sense that it would be built in a more rural area like this one. However, after placing it, I immediately realized that it looked wrong. So I thought that it might be a good idea to place a little bit of farmland to try and help frame this area a little bit better. This was helpful. After doing that, it helped me realize that the solar farm should just be placed a little bit offset from everything else, behind where the farmland is going to be. I also wanted to have another pylon in this area too. Like I said in the previous video, we should see more of these things around the city. At the very least, on the outskirts. You know what? The solar farm looks lonely. Why don't we double up? And this area is looking pretty good for now, so I think that it's a great idea to figure out where the farm is going to go. I made a mini farm a really long time ago, and it's currently in this part of the city, which is a little bit weird for this build, to be honest. So we are completely moving it out into the country, and I think right here will do nicely. But not only that, another build that is kind of inappropriately placed is my campsite, as it is right next to my mini farm. It seems weird to have a bit of forest right in the middle of where the downtown part of the city is meant to be, so we are also moving the campsite very much near the farmland. They already know each other, so it's not going to be weird. Yeah, this is actually looking pretty good. This isn't a bad layout at all. We just have to clean things up a little bit. The campsite is looking far too condensed. We can definitely spread it out a little bit. We didn't have very much room in the city centre, but out here we've got a lot more options. I don't really want to alter it too much. I just want to separate the builds so that we can appreciate them a little bit better. The only thing that I might do though is just add another tent or two, just so that it looks a little bit less lonely.
Nobody wants to sit in front of a campfire by themselves. That'd be crazy.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So let's extend the forest around our campsite. We do want to keep all of these builds separate, by the way. Whilst they are placed near each other, we don't want the campsite to blend into the farm/farmland. We want it to have its own identity. Now that we've established the campsite, we can refine the farm area a little bit. We definitely need to have some more fields, and we also need to establish a boundary around today's workspace. How far out do we want to build? Well, that's what that giant hedge on the right side of the screen is for. I also think that it'd be a good idea to have a pathway that leads us alongside the farmers' fields for ramblers or maybe even small vehicles. I also think that it would be nice to turn this empty space that we have at the front of the farm into an already worked field with just a bunch of hay bales here. I should probably remember to add a tractor trailer here later as well. We actually have a little mini tractor on the farm already, so maybe we'll just move that out a little bit later on. Something that I realised as well is that we definitely need to clean up all of these pathways and fences around all of this farmland. It was just looking far too messy for me. And at this point, the farm is not looking too bad. It might need a little bit more work later on, but I'd say that it's most of the way there. So we'll just establish a little bit of a boundary around our little farmstead, which leads us onto the next part. With all of this dense forest in this area, it seems to me that we have a pretty good space to stick our haunted house. This wasn't part of the original plan, but I think they could be good here. It's at this point that I realised that placing trees and pathways and making mountains and hills was insanely tedious, so I did a little bit of research. I discovered a mod called Axiom, which allowed me to place that really dense spruce forest really quickly. This was my first time ever using the mod, and I've got to say, I think that it's going to be insanely helpful in building and renovating the rest of the city, but I have so much to learn. It's very complicated, or at least for me. I mean, just look at all of these options. However, this area is looking really nice. We have separated all of our builds nicely. However, I'm not sure how we will kind of vaguely connect them together. Maybe a road all the way in front of our forest, because we still have to get to our campsite somehow from our bridge. I did also briefly consider adding a roundabout as well, because I kind of wanted to incorporate some more builds like that around the city, but it was a little bit too big. So maybe either a smaller one, or I'll just keep it as like a T-junction, like this. Anyway, I think that this area of the city looks pretty good for now, especially with the addition of these new hills. So I thought that it might be a really good idea to refine the solar farm a little bit. We don't just want a big blocky farm randomly placed on the back of our fields. I thought that it'd be better to shape it, which I struggled to do. I'm still very much a novice with Axiom, so these hills are looking a little bit weird and maybe a bit too small, but I'm sure that I'll figure it out eventually. In my usual ADD style of building, I do bounce around a lot, so you may also see me adding some telephone poles along our farm road. Because once again, something that I want to keep reminding myself is that we would see a lot of these things. Kind of just ambient in the city, stuff that you don't even realize you see, they kind of just fade into the background, but they make so much difference. Placing the telephone poles was quite helpful because it helped me realize the shape that I wanted to make the solar farm. Not bad. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I had an epiphany. The motorway. I remembered that I have an entire motorway in my city that goes nowhere. Well, this is the video that changes. We are placing the motorway behind our farmland, which will lay the foundation for our motorway to extend and connect around the entire city. Eventually, not right now, don't go too crazy. However, this did leave a lot of dead space between the road and the previous set of farmland, so I've added just a bunch of fresh solar panels and some terrain around it, which looks pretty good, but I am very open to exchanging some of these panels for something else later. Maybe a small farm shop or something else that we might make in the future. If you have a suggestion, leave one down below. I've made a few little finishing touches off camera, but I think that I'm finally at the point where we have successfully renovated this area. Let's take a closer look. Our journey begins on the definitely not inspired by the Golden Gate Bridge. As we get to the end of the bridge, we have two choices. On the right, the fantasy-based industrial district, and on the left, everything that we have been building in this episode. So up here, this leads us to the farm. But before that, we have a campsite to explore. At the end of this road, we have a barrier which kind of forces us down this pathway. If we wander down to the end of our path, we enter our campsite, which is just nice and chill. We have a lovely arrangement of tents, an RV, a car towing a caravan, a picnic table, and so much more. Bear in mind, I have not placed all of the necessary details, including item frames and banners and any other blocks that may potentially be destroyed when using World Edit. When we are 100% certain that something is never going to move, then we will add all of the details. But until then, we can double back on ourselves and head out of the campsite, and we can wander down this dark and spooky path, which would be a lot creepier if this was dark. What a coincidence! At the end of our beaten path, we have found a haunted house, which is very creepy in the dark. I don't want to add time onto the video fully exploring every single build, but I will leave links down below to each main build used in this video if you would like to take a better look at them and maybe even follow the tutorial. It's up to you. Honestly, this place is a little bit too creepy for my liking, so let's head back out onto our path, and let's head all the way back to the very start of our road. This dirt path is the way that one is meant to approach the farm on foot, or at least from this side of the city. You may also want to bring a machete. After what seems like a half marathon, we will eventually find a break in the hedge, and we can now enter our farm. Whilst the majority of the farm is just fields, we do also have what I would call a little homestead as well. Luckily, I did remember to add the tractor and trailer to our hay bale field. However, the actual little mini farm itself is just missing a bunch of animals, which, as mentioned, I don't want to add until we are 100% certain that this build isn't moving, but otherwise it would be much more life-filled than this. From here, there is really only one way to get to the solar farm. We walk all the way down the farm's driveway, and we have kind of this backcountry road here, which, as you can see, takes us to our larger farm if we loop around there, or if we float our way on down this road, we are greeted by just a massive amount of solar panels. And all the way down at the end of this road, we eventually reach our solar farm / solar factory. Now, for the last part of this, if we exit our solar farm and we come down this is so dauntingly long, this is such a massive road. Eventually, if we follow the road all the way to the very end, we reach a junction. To the left, we don't really have anything for now, but all the way over here on the right, this is the entrance onto the motorway. This takes us up to a roundabout where we can join the motorway heading this direction, which currently goes nowhere, or we can head across the roundabout and join the motorway heading this direction, which currently also kind of goes nowhere, but at least the road is a lot longer. And that's all I have to show you. That is everything that we have made in today's episode. I hope that you've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Also, consider becoming a channel member. You will gain access to loyalty badges, some fun emojis, and a monthly download for every single build used in our city. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Hey, what's up YouTube? In this video, we are destroying my city, one area at a time, and replacing it with something that is hopefully better. Previously, we renovated the entire rural area of the city. Now we have giant, luscious, sprawling farmland, a means of clean energy production, oh, and also this giant motorway. In this episode, we are turning our attention to the beach. So my first thought is that we have to clean up this beachfront area by removing my music festival and Mickey Mouse's clubhouse, and then that kind of leaves us with a massive gap, which I think would actually be filled nicely if we rotate the aquarium and the water park. And we just have to build some boundaries around these so that they don't just drop off into the ocean. And beyond that, I also wanted to extend the beach road all the way across to the canal area where we have placed the factory and the warehouse. This area has had a little bit of an upgrade recently with Bluey's house and Lilo and Stitch's house, so I thought that'd be a nice idea as well just to shift things across and pack things in a little bit tighter. Not only that, we also have to add a little bit of landscaping around this area as well. It doesn't make sense that our sandbanks would just drop straight off a cliff like they have, so we have turned them into a more natural shape. It just occurred to me that a good place to have a more industrial district would actually be right here near the beach. So I'm going to clean up the water park here, maybe give it a bit of a car park, but what I also need to do is extend a rather large road so that we can place those more industrial builds. We can at the very least start off with my recent warehouse build and my recent factory build. And there's plenty of others that are suitable here too. But before we place any other builds, I had a burning desire to move my IKEA and zoo and place a modern hotel. It makes sense that we have some hotels along the beachfront so that people can kind of stay here as a holiday destination. I also realized that this hotel in particular would actually look really good if we mirrored it and attached it to itself. So whether these are two separate hotels or whether it is just kind of like one big hotel, I think that this looks really cool. Through the unstoppable power of ADD, I then got to thinking about the ocean, more specifically about the underwater tunnel, and what a cool idea it was. But the problem is, it wasn't really being utilised because it kind of just extended into the middle of nowhere. So I thought it'd be a good idea to rotate it, and we can build it across the ocean and connect to our factory/industrial area. The specifics of this aren't very important, but we just extend the tunnel across, build up some landscape around it. I'm building some rocky formations, not only along the actual sandbanks, but also along my holiday park as well, which looked fantastic, I think. And I also had to move the Titanic because it was kind of directly over the underwater tunnel, so I've just moved it a little bit more inland. Whilst I was in the middle of the ocean, I had an epiphany that I could cluster together some builds deeper in the city to fill in this weird space that we have next to the industrial area. I think a good beachside set of builds includes a pizzeria, which we're using the Five Nights at Freddy's pizzeria for, an ice cream shop, and a donut shop. I did also consider placing them along the actual beachfront as well, but I decided against it. I thought that this would look a bit more interesting, which of course naturally leads us back to the industrial area itself. I added another warehouse and Acme Labs. Acme Labs is from Pinky and the Brain, but it's effectively just a large factory. I also recolored the second warehouse just to kind of fit the vibe of Acme Labs a little bit better and just to have a little bit of variance. I also recolored the lorries as well. Back to the beachfront. I really love these rebuilds. The Drunken Clam, which is effectively a pub or a bar, the arcade, and the burger stand. I really like these builds and I want to keep them together. This is where I was thinking about adding the ice cream shop and the donut stand. But there isn't quite enough room, so I did decide to condense these builds together a little bit, and I do think that it does look better for it. I did even try adding a cafe onto the end of the street just to fill in the gap, but it just didn't work. So whilst I do think that a cafe would look good somewhere along the beachfront, that one isn't it. So I do expect to be designing a new one sometime soon. At this point, I realised that my new street kind of lacked something. Another fun build. And what is more fun than a trampoline park? I didn't hear anybody say anything because there isn't anything more fun than a trampoline park. I was going to place it at the end to kind of like create a cul-de-sac, but instead I decided to rotate it and kind of create this curved street. It's not actually something that I have a lot of in the city, so it was kind of interesting to make something like this. And in doing this, I realised that I could actually extend the main road across the front of the beach, and it opens up a bunch of possibilities for us to interconnect all of the different parts of the city. This does leave a little bit of a gap though along the actual beachfront, so I decided to shift the bar, arcade and burger stand across to where the trampoline park used to be, which of course left a massive gap itself. So I think that a good build for this, at least for now, I might have to use a different one later, is Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse, because it kind of looks like a kids park or something similar, just a fun, light-hearted build in this area. If I had something like an indoor play area or something like that, then I would have chose to place that instead, but I don't think that Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse is actually bad. It is still technically a playhouse. I then got to thinking about this area in general and how the farm and the campsite needed to take a hike, as we already moved them all the way over into the rural area in the past episode, and it didn't really make any sense to keep them around. So I did a little bit of cleaning up here just to make room for any future builds. I'm not that set on completely filling this area up at the moment though. I feel as though that it just leaves room for us to expand the city in future episodes. Speaking of cleaning up, I did want to extend this main road here across and connect it to the motorway. You may remember in the previous episode that we actually added a motorway across the entire back of the city with a road connecting into the more rural area, and I thought that it'd be a good idea to connect that road all the way to the beach so that we are slowly interconnecting everything. And this actually got me thinking about the public transportation in general and how none of my train stations go anywhere or connect to anywhere. But there's an easy way to change that, starting with the new suburban suburbs train station. I don't really see that train station moving, or at least nowhere in the near future, so I extended the rails outwards. I then placed a copy of that train station next to Jump World, and then joined the tracks in a right angle like this. Later on, I will refine this and make it a lot fancier, but I just thought that it'd be a good idea to just start laying down these foundations for future episodes. I decided to stop myself before I went crazy and extended the entire train network throughout the city, making a huge mess, and I decided to do some tidying up instead. I got rid of some of the builds that we have already used elsewhere, such as Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse, and I condensed all of these random builds that had just kind of got tossed aside. I also wanted to clean up the canal area as well. I made a few changes. I recolored the factory and warehouse in just to a terracotta and stone palette, just so that it's different from everywhere else. I extended the canal to meet the new bit of road, and I just added a dense set of trees around the Mike Myers Halloween house, because I actually really like the location of that house and I don't really want it to change. The last area that needed a little bit of cleaning up was the ocean. I decided to just flatten everything out and turn it into a big rectangle rather than the weird shape that it was. And also add an exit to the underwater tunnel. I don't know if that exit is going to permanently stay there, but at least it actually goes somewhere now. I don't know what to actually do with the ocean itself. Maybe, this is just a maybe, it would be cool to have kind of like an island resort or hotel somewhere just off in the distance that you could travel to. That might be a cool idea. You know what, guys? I think that this is a great place to stop. This is what the beach looked like at the start of this video. And this is what it looks like now. I'm very happy with how this has went, and it was nice to work on a different area of the city for a change. That's it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, and if you have seen anything in this world that you like, every single build in my city has a tutorial. Check down below in the description for the mini city playlist. You will find tutorials for everything, and I guarantee there is something that you like, even if you haven't seen it yet. Goodbye.